Hello and welcome to the MentorMeet podcast. I'm Susannah Chambers and I have got a background in coaching and mentoring. And I am thrilled today to introduce our guest, Ken Andrew. Ken is a successful mentor who has a number of clients in senior roles and owners of small and medium-sized businesses from around the world. He's involved in a range of businesses, including financial services, energy, IT, healthcare, legal and others. As a mentor, he has supported companies at different stages of their development, working with the business to overcome the many challenges they face. As a result, he has a wide knowledge of many issues facing business, which clients find really helpful. Ken has also set up, developed and exited 3 of his own businesses. So welcome, Ken. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So let's get to it. So given your significant experience in organisations and as a mentor, what do you feel anybody who might be watching or listening to this podcast and might be looking for a mentor might benefit from knowing about you and your signature style as a mentor?
Well, I think the most important thing is the range of experience that you've discussed. And I think that covers all the sectors you mentioned: finance, IT, healthcare, legal, and others. And I think what's important about that is that I've been engaged in almost all of those sectors in key issues like strategic direction, whether it's from good position or bad position, marketing, and particularly international marketing. And also important that I have some wide-ranging financial experience, both in the financial sector, but also in understanding finance, whether it's cash flow management, balance sheet management, raising capital, or exiting a company, particularly if you're a small business. The other point is that, as you quite rightly said, I've had 3 businesses of my own, which I've set up, developed, and then exited. And I think that experience is particularly important when looking at the challenges small business owners have, and they do have some significant challenges. So I think that's really very important. I think when we come to the style that I have, it's much about gaining trust and empathy with the client. Trust and empathy to the point where they feel comfortable in telling me what their problems are and responding to anything I say or suggest in terms of where they may be thinking and going. So I think that's a really important aspect. Some of it is about asking questions so that people come to their own conclusion, and obviously that's a really important aspect, that people own their own decisions.
Absolutely.
But also sometimes I think it's important, as with that experience, to suggest, well, maybe you should consider this, or even challenge them. I think you've got it wrong for the following reasons.
Interesting. Thank you, Ken. And of course, you've highlighted there a really, really important difference between mentoring and coaching,
Indeed.
which is a conversation for another day, but I'm sure people watching
Yes.
might be curious to look into that. But thank you for highlighting that. Now we know more about your signature style as a mentor, Ken. What personal stories do you have from your experience that our audience and those possibly seeking a mentor can learn from and see your approach in action?
Well, I think one of the more interesting areas is an executive, C-suite executive, very talented, been with the company for 15 years. It's a long time with the company, and positioned largely by his immediate bosses to actually concentrate on his field of engagement, which was partly all about productivity. And he felt that his capability was not being recognized further up the line. And obviously that would impact his career chances. So we sat down and worked through why he was not actually engaging with those people above him. And it became clear in the conversations that he didn't really have the confidence to do it. He didn't feel he was able to reach out, if you like, and get to them. So we talked about how you might do that. So one of the issues was in a role of productivity. The question really is, surely every division, every department has a productivity issue. It's not just the area that he was engaged in. And therefore we talked about how he might take the productivity concept and how he might approach it into another division.
I see.
So to get that, he had to go through his boss. His boss thought it was a great idea. He did do that. And so he then got into a couple of other areas. So he had this profile of being productive,
Yeah.
being concentrating on productivity, producing solutions. And after a while, it became clear, and he also asked for engagement above his boss
Okay.
to demonstrate what he was doing, which he got. And then at a board meeting, the ultimate chief executive said, "This stuff that's going on in the productivity, who is it that's doing it?"
Oh,
So he actually got an audience with the chief executive,
brilliant.
which was really good.
Fantastic.
And part of that was talking to him about how to present. And I very strongly believe that with an individual or with an audience, you've got something like 20 seconds to capture their attention. So rather than what many people do, which is to say, this is what I did with loads and loads of detail, by which stage people are actually falling asleep, is to go to the crunch point, first of all,
Yes.
and say, I did this and this is what it produced in terms of earnings, in terms of profitability, in terms of cost reduction, whatever it was that he was looking to do. And so I helped him through the mentoring process to construct a very short 10-minute presentation when going to see the boss. And he did do that. And afterwards, he was so clear in the way he presented it that whenever the chief executive or some media reporting line wanted some explanation of an issue, they'd call on him.
Oh, amazing.
It was really good. I was so thrilled.
Oh, that's fantastic. And that's great as well, Ken, hearing that, because what you're describing again there is that it's a situation where somebody through mentoring actually was able to progress and achieve on a particular issue, but actually what you co-created with that mentee as a byproduct almost is transferable skills that are repeatable, right?
Absolutely.
How interesting. And again, in terms of the strategies that you describe, where you were talking about that mentee and how they were getting that engagement, from more senior stakeholders, how did you work with that client in terms of how legitimate they felt doing that, if you see what I mean? Was that a case of the client feeling positioned and equipped to do that at the start, or was that something that you had to work on with them? And if so, in terms of feeling legitimate, feeling confident to do that, how did you approach that with them?
I mean, I do feel very strongly about developing trust. So first of all, we developed that level of trust, and so he was willing to listen to what I was saying and be prepared to take on board something. But all he needed, and I said to him at the time, what is the alternative? You stay at this level in the company for the rest of your life, or do you go and get another job? And he said, well, I like the company and I'd like to move on. So I said, well, maybe you need to be braver, be a bit more brave and go along some of these routes that we've been talking about, including seeking to go into other divisions. Now, that was the brave bit, to be honest, because having got into those divisions, he was able to prove he really understood productivity and how it could benefit the company as a whole. We're talking about millions of pounds because it was a very big company. And chief executives notice things like that. We've got a saving in this division of nearly £2 million. So who did this?
Yes.
It's a natural question.
Yes.
And that's why he got the audience that he was seeking. So I think that trust plays a really important part in that, but also seizing the opportunity where, frankly, he didn't have another alternative. The alternative was really to leave the company if he wanted to progress, which is not that easy. 15 years in a company is very difficult to leave because you've got all of their value system, you've got their approach to life, you're recognised. He's been around 15 years. Which is not the tradition, frankly, these days. I mean, it's more like 4 years, 5 years.
Absolutely. Oh, it's evolving very much, isn't it, in the world of work? Yeah, absolutely. Now, you've used a word a couple of times, and I'm curious to explore this more with you. the word audience.
Yeah.
So, not thinking specifically about that example with that mentee you gave, but just generally thinking about your dynamic that you have as a mentor with a mentee. How does that work in terms of who is the audience at any given moment in time in your own mentoring mentee relationship? How, just talk to us about how does that work?
Well, the audience, as far as I'm concerned, with the mentee is the mentee. That's it.
Okay.
It's not my purpose to go and talk to other people,
Mm.
but his audience is definable by those people who are relevant to his objective. So
Yes.
his objective was clear, which
Mm-hmm.
was I need to get access to the more senior people in the
Mm-hmm.
company.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, the audience for him had to be, how do I gain access to it?
Mm.
And you don't necessarily gain access to it directly, which he didn't in this case. He gained it through some other activity.
Mm.
So this wasn't like overnight.
No.
This had to take time for him to show through his activities that he was producing great benefit to other divisions. It was like a corporate view that he was expressing.
Mm.
I can do this for you because I've done it elsewhere.
Mm.
And that's where he got the ability to then see
Mm-hmm.
his ultimate objective, which was the higher up people.
Yeah, and it sounds as though in that case that you're describing as well that the mentoring experience was almost creating an opportunity for him to simulate what that might feel like in terms
Yes,
of them being the audience and
yes,
almost kind of rehearse that, right?
exactly that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, very exhilarating example, and what I find very exhilarating about that example is that you can imagine that situation that you're describing being experienced by so many people,
Absolutely.
right?
It is. Yeah.
And this is not something that is just kind of a unique thing to one person. I mean, we know that is a challenge that faces so many people. So for you to be in a position to help people unlock that is so powerful, Ken.
It is. I really think it's important.
So looking back on your life and career, Ken, what have you seen and done that you wish you had done differently, and how does that influence your mentoring approach?
Okay, I suppose the biggest issue was that when I was in the corporate field, um, I was very focused on doing the job I was responsible for.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I became marketing director of one of the big banks, and my focus was making that unit successful, making the individuals within it feel really powerful,
Mm-hmm.
capable of going off doing it themselves,
Okay.
unlocking the door to great success. And it actually was successful. It was
Brilliant.
greatly successful. We achieved 52% of the student banking market. 52%.
Wow, that's
Incredible.
massive.
We launched 2 products aimed at children. Right, we came last to market, but we understood it implicitly,
Mm.
and we gained 200,000 new accounts within 2 months. A million accounts within a year, became market leader. All sorts of things like that, which was great. And I think that the thing I did not do, which was the thing that really I should have done, and this is where the lesson is, I didn't really focus on the bosses. I didn't focus enough on getting the people above me
Mm-hmm.
really committed into what we were doing and how I was doing it. I was much more concerned about delivering
Mm.
and delivering with a team. I was much more concerned about the team. And I think that what it said to me and how it now reflects into talking with others, with clients,
Mm.
is that you've got to be aware of the wider picture, that it's not just, in my case, the team, it's actually the organization as well.
Mm.
And they may be in different pockets of the organization, which you haven't thought about. And I think that's a really important lesson. And I've certainly played that back with various clients, and that's been very helpful to them.
That's very interesting what you're sharing there, because that concept, I guess, of mentoring being part of a system,
Mm.
that the experience of the client is not just a kind of uniform one lens experience. It's part of that wider system, right, with those dynamics. So
It is.
yes, that's interesting hearing you retrospect in terms of what that wider system involved. Yeah, and yeah, how interesting to hear that's been now informing your approach as a mentor. Thank you, Ken. So, what career limiting moves have you either experienced firsthand or observed as a mentor that you are particularly aware of when you're mentoring, and what have you learnt from them?
Well, I suppose going on from the previous point, really, um, not just in terms of my own experience, first-hand experience, but also from clients who I've mentored, is the feeling that there's like a self-limiting communication process, and not enough engagement with people. That's particularly true of the environment of corporate field. And I think there you have this real problem of you need to really think through who is likely to be involved in this, who's going to have an interest in the solution. And I guess that the really critical thing here is to ensure that you first of all engage with those people. You actually make them feel involved wherever they might be, and to ensure that you communicate effectively with them. So I suppose that's a key issue that I feel is really important. And I haven't, to be honest with you, I really have not experienced too many disasters. Where there have been potential disasters, I hope that through the mentoring process, people have overcome them and found solutions.
Great to hear. Thank you, Ken. And where you're talking about those stakeholders, because again, you've touched on a really crucial point there, right? You know, that awareness of stakeholders, and of course, in mentoring, I mean, even that skill, which sounds very straightforward about self-awareness, it sounds so simple, doesn't it?
It does,
Yet we
really.
know, don't we, that
Yeah.
this concept of self-awareness, and depending on the starting point of the client,
Yes.
about what does self-awareness look like for them,
Right.
and if that's a challenge, how do they reach it?
Yes. Yeah.
And it sounds from what you've said around that stakeholder awareness that's really powerful. I'm interested in your view on this as well, building on what you've just shared there, Ken. So I like to think of this concept of clients knowing who their allies are.
Well, allies and enemies.
Enemy is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you care to elaborate?
Well, I mean, I think well, clearly in any organization,
Yeah.
there are people with their own agendas. And their agenda may be to knock you off the perch. And you need to be conscious of that and aware about that. How would I react to that now, given the experience I have? I'd actually engage them. I would engage those enemies and make them feel they're part of it. They won't be anything other than an enemy at the end of the day, but at least they can't complain. They haven't been involved.
Interesting.
You haven't reached out to them and said, "Come and help, come and contribute." So I think it's important you shouldn't close the door on them at all. I think that would be disaster. Actually.
Yeah. Oh, how interesting. Thank you, Ken. I will bear that in mind for my own day to day. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the interaction between a mentor and a mentee is based on dialogue and who says what. What clues are you looking for from what is not said between you and a mentee to better understand them and their situation? And how do you respond to those cues?
Well, this is a really important issue. So thank you for asking the question. It really is a fundamental issue for mentors to deal with. And I think that I can best explain this with an example with a client. This client has been with me for nearly 4 years, and he came to me with a specific question, which was, I've been running this business for 12 years, and it's been very successful. It's in the healthcare sector and regulated in America, regulated by various bodies, and insurance companies were paying very high contributions to private healthcare. And then, as over time, the issue was that the margins were getting squeezed as more people came in to provide this particular service. So the margin actually decreased. So the question he had was, this is a decreasing margin business, and I've now been offered some money to sell the company.
Yeah.
He was 48 and a doctor. So it's a very young age to decide to sell and exit.
Mm.
And it struck me that he really hadn't considered the alternatives. So, because he hadn't said it, so there was it was unanswered. The question was not really dealt with,
I see.
and therefore I suggested to him that we actually sit down and work through what are the alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
And we worked through the alternatives, which was set up another business, which had higher margins, perhaps related, or should be related closely to what he was doing, and there was such an opportunity. Secondly, look at some sort of merger. Thirdly, carry on doing what they're doing. And fourthly, sell the business. And that's where he ended up, started working through that process. But what became really interesting was that whereas he come into the question of, do I sell the company?
Mm-hmm.
And then he looked at alternatives. It was all a question of, do I sell? Do I sell? Now, I've worked with others who are wanting to sell the company, and I can tell you it takes at least 2 to 3 years to properly do that. You can jump at an offer,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not necessarily going to be your best offer. So I suggested we actually take a break out of that. And I said, what are you going to do after? Because that was the question. What are you going to do when you're 48, leaving this business? What are you going
Yeah.
to be doing? You're a doctor, you're a professional.
Yes.
And then it became clear what this was all about, because it was all about his personal goals, what he
Mm-hmm.
wanted to achieve with a young family
Mm-hmm.
in the next 20 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And so the issue wasn't, do I sell and sell at the best price? It was, do I sell to someone who actually enables me to do the things I really want to do?
Interesting. Yeah. That's so fascinating. So, like, as you described, the actual issue on the surface was not the actual
It wasn't, no,
issue.
it definitely
Well, it
wasn't.
sounds like you did a very good job at getting under there, Ken, and unearthing that. Fantastic. And just out of curiosity, that with that particular mentee, how long approximately did that process take, would you say, for that penny drop moment from the start?
I would say it took nearly 12 months,
Mm.
because the first issue was, do I sell at this price? So we had to go through that process. And then after a couple of months, I was proposing to him, should you not be looking at alternatives? And what are the alternatives?
Mm.
So he then articulated those, and then he went through, with my help, what the alternatives meant. So, for example, moving into an adjacent area of business
Mm.
with bigger margins, was he skilled at doing it? And the answer was no. So actually, he'd set up the business, which was, he'd probably get clients from his area
Mm-hmm.
to ultimately move into the next area.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't be doing the procedures, he wouldn't be involved. So he'd have to recruit someone with that skill.
Oh, I
That
see.
person actually would then want some sort of shares in the company because he'd participating.
Right.
And so the next area was the idea of a merger. But mergers don't always work.
Mm.
Acquisitions don't work either. But the reality is that mergers, if you've got two companies and there is a difference of value systems and different ways of operating, they don't necessarily work together. And so there was a pain there. So as we got through these things, every alternative looked difficult. And it was at that stage that I said to him, what exactly, this is when I got to the point, you're 48, what on earth are you going to be doing? And that's when it became clear, after another couple of months, that what he was looking for was actually not necessarily the highest amount of money, not to exit. In fact, he wanted to carry on doing that. He wanted some money,
Mm-hmm.
don't misunderstand me, but he wanted to carry on doing the things. And you can understand that with a professional, a doctor who's spent a lifetime in caring for people and helping them,
Mm.
to say, I want to carry on.
Yeah. Well, I must say, I'm 47, and you've got me thinking. So you're clearly very effective. I'm thinking, oh yeah, what are my options? If I may just
Yeah.
look a bit more into what you've shared there as well, Ken. So where I was asking you how long did it take for that penny drop moment, I'm interested. This is kind of a bit of a spin-off question, but it's related to the example that you've given. Um, to what degree do you find that people have expectations around how long that penny drop moment is going to take for them? Because in my experience is that that can vary wildly by client in terms of that realization, right? About even what the options are. What's your experience of that?
Well, I think that most people come to the table believing it's a particular issue, a simple issue, needs some help to resolve it.
Mm.
And I don't think they're necessarily looking for a penny drop moment.
Mm.
I think as a mentor, you are, because you're always questioning, am I hearing the whole story? And therefore, you're looking for the opportunity to expand it if it is appropriate to expand.
Mm. Mm.
And I think that it's really significant that you spend enough time. But this is where trust and empathy really comes in, because if the person trusts you, and they will tell you, ultimately,
Mm.
they will tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And it will become absolutely clear where you need to spend your time and effort. Um, and I think that, one of the things that I've just written a blog actually on LinkedIn about the stress and strain of running a company. And I do feel that there are just so many complexities. You set up a company and you think, oh my God, this is so good, exhilarating stuff. I'm really keen to do it. If only I'd done this earlier, to be away from the corporate world or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And then you suddenly find, oh my God, there's all this accountancy stuff. How do I get customers in? How do I what's the cash flow like? There's a multitude of issues.
Mm. Mm.
And in a way, it never goes away, because even if you're successful
Mm-hmm.
with a successful small business, you grow it, and then suddenly you get regulations coming in from government.
And then you're adapting and you're being agile and
Exactly.
yes,
Well,
pivoting, pivot.
yes. So I think that it never goes away, that stress and strain. And he had it in spades, this guy.
Yeah.
He had an enormous amount of stress from running the business. Doctors, whether they are not necessarily business people.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't, and but he'd struck gold. Well, good for him. Lucky. I mean, I was absolutely thrilled for him, as I would be anybody who struck gold. But he he wasn't. He was struggling with this issue, with all the stress, not just in the office, but
Mm.
about the closing business issue,
Yeah.
and also from home,
Okay.
because this stuff goes back into the home.
Mm.
It doesn't
Mm.
stop at the door. And I mean, there are all sorts of ways, which I'm sure you're familiar with, of trying to manage that process
Mm.
by proper diary systems, not focused on the most important, most trivial issues.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a small businessman, actually, it's
Yeah.
true in the corporate world too.
Mm.
You get thrown a
Prioritizing.
load of trivial stuff,
Mm.
and the
Mm.
best thing to do is to ignore it and just focus on the really big things.
Mm.
Set aside time in the day to think, even if it's for 30 minutes,
Mm.
to set aside. You, everybody gets loads of emails coming in.
Mm.
And my view is nothing can be really serious, because if it was, they'd phone you.
Well, there you go, listeners and watchers. You've had a Ken Andrew gem there from mentoring. So if you want more of that, then you know to reach out to Ken. Brilliant. Before we kind of just reflect a bit on some of these key themes that you've been touching on, Ken, you mentioned there trust. And if I may, I'd just like to build on that again. I absolutely agree with you. I think trust, is absolutely a cornerstone, right, of powerful mentoring.
Yeah.
And that's got me thinking a little bit more about value systems more broadly, for our mentees, and how that connects, for example, with your values as a mentor. And again, going slightly off piece, but if I it may, you know, What values do you feel, you really bring to mentoring conversations that have been very powerful in terms of how they've connected with your clients?
Well, I mean, things like honesty,
Yeah.
directness, openness, willingness to, in particular, listen
Mm-hmm.
and listen accurately, to reflect back some of that stuff to the client, to make them feel that you're someone they can just simply rely upon, not to engage in telling me how to run the business, because that's entirely up to them, but actually willing to challenge them and willing to propose ideas of how they might proceed on particular issues. And I think it's doing that sort of stuff. And I have to say also, though, that having had the experience that we touched on right from the word go of a multitude of different types of businesses,
Mm-hmm.
and also different types of experience in my own case, I think that in itself helps to build trust, because business people, you might be a mentor, but if you don't, in my view, if you don't have that business background, it's very difficult.
With people in business.
Yes,
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 yes, yes. I can see that. So just to recap then, if I may, on
yes.
some of the key themes that you've covered. So things that I've definitely heard coming up, and if you think of anything else while we're recapping, please feel free to chip in. But what's come across to me is really, that power of understanding, who your stakeholders are, and also really becoming very self-aware and conscious about how to interact with those stakeholders, being aware of them in different systems. You've mentioned organisational systems. You've mentioned, for example, family systems in the example you gave with the doctor selling the business. You have talked about the importance of trust as a key value in mentoring and honesty. And you've also mentioned about the importance of unlocking what is not being said, not just what is being said.
Yes, quite.
What have I missed, Ken? Is there
Well,
anything else?
I don't think you have missed anything from what I've said, but one other issue I might want to raise is that I think that it's really important that where you're running a business, where you're involved in a corporate field, it's really important as a mentor. And I feel very strongly about this. It was the recognition of this was when I was in the corporate world, but it's become a really important thing for me. I think everybody, no matter their background, no matter where they've come from, no matter what they've experienced, they can be successful in some way. What's important is finding the key to open that door to success. And that's where a mentor really can have a huge positive impact. And I always seek, where is the key? Where is that person's key to open the door? It's for them to actually open it. But if I can help them find the key, I consider that to be a success.
How wonderful. Thank you, Ken. Very inspirational. So where can our audience find you? If they think we need mentoring by Ken, where can they find you?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn under Ken Andrew. But also my email address is Andrew Kenneth, reverse of Kenneth Andrew,
Okay, yes.
at mac.com.
Fantastic. Well, it has been an absolute delight to share this conversation with you, Ken. I have learned a lot, and I'm going to experiment implementing some of the ideas that you've shared as well into my own kind of practice and making my own decisions as well. So
Great.
Thank you very much for your time, and hope everybody that's watching this has really enjoyed it and taken something from it.
Thank you, Susannah, as well.